Um, Today I want to talk about levels. Now, I want to bring forth an alternative to levels. Why do we need them? I think we don't need them. I think levels are a bit redundant, however, they could be the right solution for your table. But I think levels have become so entrenched in the gaming culture that it would be quite off putting to people not to have them. If the first game you brought to people would be Ken, I'm sure you'd have quite a lot of backlash at your table. People expect to level up, whether it's from, just the Dungeons and Dragons tradition or because people are so accustomed to video games nowadays. And really, honestly, how many RPGs, and I'm talking about video games this time around, how many video game RPGs? Video game RPGs, does that make sense? Video game role playing games. For video RPGs. Digital, I guess. How many digital RPGs do you know that don't use levels as a progression mechanic? Really? How many? I can't, off the top of my head, I can't name a single one. You could, if you broadened your definition of RPGs, probably find some that are very loosely RPGs. But if we talk in the very traditional sense of RPG, where you have your character creation, you've got abilities and whatnot, and all these RPG-like things, that's quite rare. And among the big ones, hard to say. So, levels. They're here. They're expected at tables. But I believe that in a lot of cases, they do more harm than good. As I said earlier, at the beginning of the video, they could be the right solution for your table. But that might be more the exception than the rule. And you'd say, well, I can't just take away levels. Like every system I play relies on levels. It's like a core mechanic to whatever, to give players a sense of achievement, to drip feed them abilities, to ease them into the game and its workings. Can't just take away levels. What's left if we take away levels? My goodness, no, what's left? What indeed? What is left if we take away levels? Well, think about it. If you're a game master, you'd probably have some ideas. You give your players items, but in a sense, I really want to shift away from the whole discourse. You, as the game master, you give your players items. You don't exist within the narrative, within the world. You didn't give anything. It just fell from the sky, kind of thing. And if that's the case, it's probably not very rewarding, very fun game unless you play with like year-olds. So, where do these things come from? On them? They just stumble onto them? Again, not very rewarding. Did they earn them? Probably. How did they earn them? They slew a fearsome beast and just happened to be, I don't know, parts of it horde or lair. Could be. Or foe. Powerful foe. And it was one of the weapons, let's say, that this foe was using. That's earned. So, could items be the sole replacement for levels? Well, again, a lot of the systems that are commonly used today, they break apart. So it's almost like you have to play completely different systems if you want to have this levelless experience. But why would you want to do this? In my experience, the things that I've tried is really systems that shift away from the character sheet. I really do think that the character sheet has become the bane of role-playing in modern role-playing game culture, unfortunately. The character sheet. The character sheet should be a tool. It shouldn't be an end or the beginning of anything, really. It shouldn't be worshipped. It's a piece of paper that you should occasionally reference, but not the end-all be-all of your character's existence. Your character should exist mainly, was my belief. You could disagree, but then I feel like we would be playing different games. A role-playing game. Your character should exist mainly in the moments where you're role-playing. And role-playing doesn't have to be social encounters. You could role-play in combat, role-play in exploration, role-play in social encounters. What does role-playing in combat look like? It just means playing out the combat in a faithful manner, faithful to the character and who they are. So you can roleplay, and this is the time where your character should exist. Your character shouldn't be the sum of all the features and all the abilities that you've dutifully collected throughout your career as a character, as a player of a character. I mean, you've collected all these abilities, you've collected all these features. That's what you're proud of. You earned those, usually through the mechanic of levels. That's meaningless to me. I mean, in context, it's not meaningless. You associate the moments. Maybe, oh, I got that feature after this level up. When I level up to level, who knows what, 14, let's say. And after I slew this epic dragon, and I level up to level 14. And that's when I unlock the feature. Okay. It has meaning, but only through association. So, what does it look like to shift RPG design towards those moments, towards what happened at the table, rather than keep piling down onto the character sheet and just putting everything on the sheet so that at some point it's not going to be a role-playing game anymore. It's going to be a game of Battleship or whatever. Like, I have ability X. Is your monster immune to ability X? No, my monster counters, please. Oh, it dies. Well, sunk. Good job. Now, there's lots of people in the design space who are experimenting, and I want to see what people are cooking up, because especially what's going on in the OSR movement. You've got people like, the designer of Can, who I just can't remember the name off the top of my head, but who are making Can, which is a classless system. And a lot of OSR games are still rooted in old school design, which is largely influenced by what D&D used to be ages ago. Which already had levels, so there's a bit of a unfortunate situation there. levels have been around for so long that even things that are old school or trying to reinvent, rethink what RPGs should be like by taking inspiration on the old and of new innovations. But OSR has largely become something new that gives you the idea is reminiscent of old school D&D, but still being very different. So these shackles of the past is what we need to cast off and really think about character progression in a new way. Levels are comfortable. That's what people know, what people expect, what people are used to. They're easy to implement. Whether you use reward-based experience or milestone experience, that can come with its problems. How many players are frustrated at their game master because they use milestone levels and they have no idea when they're going to level up, and they're becoming impatient, and it's been, game master, it's been 3 months since I last leveled up. When am I going to level up? And then every session becomes, oh, do we level up yet? Do we level up yet? Sometimes you can say a little bit of it in jest, but between every half-hearted question is a little bit of genuine impatience, even if it's in good sport. And on the opposite side, if you use reward-based experience, you can end up having strange behavior. You have players who are, from the ramifications of a role-playing game, are expected to play out their character, yet the system incentivizes them to, collect 10 bear asses, or whatever the equivalent would be, slay hordes of goblins over and over again, because that's what gives you experience. So then, again, often it's on the system, on the designers. Is the designer's responsibility, or it falls on the game master's on the game master to change or tweak the XP rewards, because you don't want to have characters who for their whole lives just slay goblins over and over again. So there are fundamental issues with experience, and implementing a solid XP reward system is not as straightforward as it might seem. Balancing it is a lot of work. Therefore, a game master or designer, which often can mean the same thing in a lot of spaces. Whereas if you never had experience in the first place, it's like, hey, you get a wand of magic missile, something like that. What does it do? It shoots magic missiles maybe X amount of times before it expires. That's it. That's your reward. It's inherent. It's intrinsic, I should say, to the item. There's nothing you can do about it. It's nothing that makes it worse or better. It's just there. So your character might not need a wand of magic. Well, maybe someone in the party could use it. And then it becomes a question of how do you maximize the usefulness of what you have? And sometimes even an axe-wielding barbarian might use a wand of magic missile. Items, again, I feel like it sounds like, through what I'm saying, but my sole suggestion is just have items replace everything. No. Then you end up showering players in items, and it feels a bit weird. Like items for this. And especially in a lot of games where inventory space is really limited, And design overall seems to be shifting towards that, where contrary to D&D, Pathfinder, and whatnot, where you just have bags of holding, or spacious pouches, or whatever name you have for it. You just have limited storage space. But at the same time, it kind of makes sense. If items are not the main way of progressing in those systems, that you would have those. A lot of other systems, more modern, inventory has come back in a big way. So you wouldn't want to shower players in items. So a little bit of items. What else? What else can be done? I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that. And I feel there's a big space that we kind of know of as designers and game masters, but it's not always discussed. It's kind of there without being thought about too much, is relational rewards. You can call them whatever you want. Connections, favors. And those are in a strange way, those are the least tangible rewards, but at the same time, the truest rewards. Why truest? I mean, untangible, we understand, compared to items, especially the most tangible kind. And these relational rewards, the least tangible kind, somehow the truest. What does that mean? They're the truest in the narrative, in the reality of the game. Items, sure, they're real in the game world, but depending on how much work you put into them, how much does one magic missile really immerse you into the world? Because in the last campaign we played in a totally different world, I also had a wand of magic missile. So how is this wand of magic missile different? It's made of wood of the native tree of this part. Sure, but does it change the way that missiles come out of the wand? Probably not. So items often feel like generic fantasy item number 2. Here you go. Whereas relational rewards is like the Lord of so and so has rewarded you for your service, and now you get one get out of jail free card. Might not be explicitly said this way, but it could be. Could be in your department, could be something else that you're in his or her favor, and you get to cash in that capital somehow, sometime. Those are the truest rewards because they are inextricably linked to the game world. There's nothing you can do about that. So we have tangible item rewards, we have untangible relational rewards. How else can you mark character progression? There are many systems that exist many mechanics that exist across different systems. Something that you find often is skill progression. You get better at stuff. You get better at climbing. You get better at navigating. Better at anything, whatever you want, really. The game is about. Better at fishing. That could be a mechanic that is very similar to levels, but more horizontal. So if people get to improve their skill over time, it could be that they are progressing in very different ways. And that if you say someone is a master fisher versus a master whatever lock picker. Hard to equate those two, to put them, to compare them. And they're both masters, but it really is meaningless comparison. Whereas in a level system, if you have, I have a level 5 wizard, let's say, and a level 5 fighter, in a lot of systems, they'll be comparable. Yeah, they will cast a martial divide, whatever. But theoretically, ideally, level 5 fighter, level 5 wizard, you're supposed to be able to compare them. And many people do DPR calculations and spreadsheets and whatnot. And I mean, you can just look at how many videos there are out there of the whole martial caster divide debate and all of that. So people do think about it, and people do compare them all the time because they are fundamentally comparable. Nobody goes around and it's like, oh, you are a master lockpicker and a master forager. Okay. So, no, you're not going to go around and compare the two. Just that they happen to be both masters in their skill. Doesn't mean much otherwise. So, systems for horizontal progression that are more similar than not to levels, but still different. And I believe ultimately, if we put all those things together, whether it's, and then we can also have them be interconnected. For example, you're getting new items, tangible, but you can't use it yet because you are not skilled enough. So maybe you need to invest more time in training a certain skill before you can. So, and again, there could be differences in systems where you can wear whatever you want. You can use whatever you want. You want to use this fishing rod, you can. But the system might be, no, you can't use this fishing rod because you're not a master fisher yet. There you go. If we put all of these things together, skill or horizontal progression systems, item rules, relational rules, and probably more things that I haven't thought about, feel free to write down your own suggestions of what can replace levels. Or how should I say? At this point, we've moved so far in the conversation that it's not about levels anymore. It's more about rules and giving players a sense of progression. What systems do you use, and what systems do you recommend that are different from levels to give players a sense of progression? And not just progression, but also rewarding them. Because rewards could be consumables, right? If you get a relational reward, which is a favor, and you cash in the favor, well, it's gone. So not every reward needs to be tied to progression. It could be a relational reward that increases your standing with a certain person. That is permanent, or at least more permanent than a favor. There's these two types. Now, what are your suggestions? What do you use, and what can you think of that are these markers of progression? I want, to continue thinking about that. And I also want to see more systems kind of embrace these things. I personally have had a great time playing things like Mouse Ritter, in which I haven't yet played enough to see what it's like at higher levels, but even at level 1, you can tell how much the game really doesn't really need levels, honestly. I mean, there's still nice things with the levels, but there are some systems which still cling on to levels. And some do use it elegantly, but we can see already that in design space, we've moved to a point where they have become vestigial in a lot of places. So that's the discussion. And I will think about what's the follow-up to this conversation. There's a lot of things I want to talk about, kind of adjacent to progression, perhaps more on the tangible side of things. Anyways, thank you for listening.